Hello everyone, this is Meteorologist John Jurgens with an update on the active start to the work week it looks like that we have over the next couple of days. So right now we are live on our website on WREX.com on the 13 News app, as well as our YouTube page and our Facebook page. And if you're watching on Facebook, you can make sure to send in any questions that you have throughout the little forecast that I'm about to give here. We'll just go over both Monday and Tuesday rounds of severe weather possible. So if you have any questions, make sure to send them in, and I'll just go through the forecast here in the meantime. So right now, looking at exact track radar, looking pretty clear across much of the area. It's pretty much just a decaying thunderstorm east of Waterloo, Iowa, and that's going to continue to do so. There's a lot of dry air across our area, so that's why, any kind of shower or thunderstorm activity you've been seeing on radar across Iowa has just been failing to reach our area just because we've had high pressure, which is centered pretty much around the UP of Michigan. That's kept us nice and dry and pretty warm today. I think, today I think was a little more pleasant compared to yesterday, a little less humidity there. But as we look at a more regional view, as we head further throughout the central U.S., that's really where the active weather has been today, especially across the state of Kansas, where they have a rather intense Boeing line of thunderstorms that just went through Wichita. I believe that severe thunderstorm warning was for 90-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Wichita, Kansas, a very strong thunderstorm there. And that actually is going to be our focus for the round of severe weather heading into tomorrow. So let me kind of take over this computer here real quick, and actually I'll go through what we're looking at here for both of these. So this patch of now severe thunderstorms just to the southwest of Des Moines, Iowa, is going to be potentially reaching our area by the morning. This will be sub-severe by then. It'll be weakening overnight. So this could be a little bit of a wet start to our day tomorrow. And then it's this, at least the northern part of this line of thunderstorms, that will be slowly making its way further to the north and east. And this round would be what we would look for heading into tomorrow for any kind of severe potential. So that's going to be our kind of time frame here in terms of what we're going to be watching over the next about 24 hours or so. So taking a look at the severe storm outlook for today, no threat for severe weather across our area for the rest of the night tonight. That's holding off even just a marginal risk across Iowa. It's really just Kansas and Oklahoma where they're really seeing the severe weather as of this point. However, tomorrow, that's our first day that we're kind of under the gun here. So we're looking at a slight risk, a level 2 out of 5 in that yellow shading there, pretty much from Freeport to Dixon and points off to the east. So Rockford, Belvedere, DeKalb, Rochelle, Byron, wherever, if you're in any or around any of the communities I mentioned, that's a level 2 out of 5 risk for tomorrow afternoon that we'll be watching for potentially damaging straight line wind gusts. That's going to be our main concern for tomorrow. Maybe some hail, just because the thunderstorms that will be developing, we'll be looking at potentially, kind of like right on top of us. So that could have a brief, hail potential there as those storms begin to develop. Then heading into Tuesday, this is kind of the day that we've been talking about is the day to watch out for. And this is the one where we have a level 3 out of 5. That's called an enhanced risk of severe weather. So that's when we really start to, hammer home the message of really watch what you're doing on Tuesday, because we have a enhanced risk of severe weather across most of the area, essentially Belvedere to DeKalb, and points off to the west. And this is essentially because we're seeing the higher likelihood of severe weather the farther west you go, just because with a potentially developing line of thunderstorms in Iowa, it's going to be making its way off to the east, and it's one of those race against time kind of setups that it's going to be right at around sunset, and then that line will start to weaken after sunset, and it's just going to be where is that line, and then when does it start to weaken essentially. And that pretty much, it's like right around the I-39 corridor-ish right now as to where we think, maybe the higher risk further to the west and then a lower risk farther to the east. So, I already got a few questions over here. So Kansas is getting hit. They've really been getting hit pretty much hard all day. So, at least we're not looking at that for right now, but that could be a little bit of what we look for heading into Tuesday. I'll go into details on that here in just a second. So taking a look here on future tracks, we're going to start here early Monday morning. So here in the next few hours at about 5 o'clock, that's those storms that we saw across southwestern Iowa near Des Moines or in southwest of Des Moines. That's going to be when they're knocking on our doorstep. Now, I think this model's doing a pretty good job at showing both the timing and also that the bulk of the activity is going to be holding off into Wisconsin, I think. That's going to be where the bulk of any kind of activity lies, although I definitely would not be surprised if we have some scattered showers and some thunderstorms in the morning across northern Illinois. So not looking at any kind of severe threat with these, just maybe a little bit of a soggy and maybe a bit of a noisy start to the day tomorrow, not looking at any kind of severe potential in the morning. We get a little bit of dry time later on though, and then that's when we watch for those pop-up showers and thunderstorms heading into the afternoon. Here we're looking at about noon and thinking that the timing here for these storms to really develop and really turn severe would be noon to 2 o'clock. That's going to be about that time frame that we see these storms really starting to bubble up here. And it's going to be isolated at first. That's where we see the damaging wind gust, maybe some hail with this kind of activity as well. And this continues here, even closer towards 2, 3 o'clock, still seeing that activity bubbling up. And then it'll be moving fairly quickly off to the east towards Chicago and Milwaukee. So then it's going to be kind of later on for those areas as we continue to watch for more of these cells to kind of develop across our area throughout the afternoon. And then I think around 6, 7 o'clock, I think is when the last of our severe threat is starting to set up, because then by then the environment is kind of getting worked over, and at that point we're getting closer to sunset. So think about 6, 7 o'clock is about when our last gasp of severe thunderstorms would be about, and then as we head later on, we'll be drying things out for the rest of Monday night. So that is the chances for Monday. Now let's head over to Tuesday, because then that's where we see a round of thunderstorms. Now, this will be weakening activity from another round of severe weather that they're getting across the plains around Nebraska and Kansas, again, under the threat for some severe weather tomorrow. This will be pretty much the remnants of that heading into early Tuesday morning. Now, there are some pretty significant differences in the timing of this round and within the models, and that's actually going to play a pretty important role for us. So that's why we kind of have a lot of question marks still on this, even though it's only 2 to 3 days away. We have to see when this morning round comes in to assess what our afternoon and evening round could look like. So currently future track showing potentially around 7 o'clock in the morning, the bulk of this activity working through. And then the kind of problematic thing is at least in this specific model, is that we really dry out. And if we do see those clouds clearing out and we see plenty of sunshine, that can allow that atmospheric battery to really charge up pretty quickly. And there will be a warm front that'll be sitting off to our south. And if we really do clear out that quickly, that'll surge northward. And south of that warm front is a really unstable air mass. So that's going to be what we watch to see with that potential for severe weather later on in the evening. If we can get into that unstable air mass, if we can really get that battery recharged, then we start to see that potential for some severe weather heading into the evening. So here's future track later on towards about 7, 8 o'clock. And I think the timing is pretty good here, although this specific model, I think, may be just kind of underdoing the coverage here a little bit. I think we'll be talking about more of a robust line of thunderstorms if we get that much of a break in the late morning into the early afternoon. But nonetheless, I think the timing is pretty good here, about 7 o'clock starting to cross the Mississippi River. But then what's around 8 o'clock, around 8:30 nowadays is sunset. So we have to figure out where that line is going to be at sunset. So that's going to be when we start to see the trend going down in terms of the intensity of these thunderstorms. So as we progress this further, closer towards 8:30 to 9 o'clock, starting to reach central parts of our area, maybe just starting to reach the I-39 corridor too. So that's going to be around the general timing that we're talking about with the Tuesday afternoon round. And then as this progresses further, there will be a cold front kind of following this across our west. That'll be sweeping out the showers and thunderstorms later on into early Wednesday morning. And once that front clears out, looks like we're pretty much in the clear in terms of any kind of showers and storms. And that unsettled stretch that we've been talking about goes to an end. So let's talk about the timing here. Just once again for Monday, noon to 7 o'clock, that's going to be that damaging wind, maybe some hail threat with those pop-up thunderstorms pretty much right on top of us. And then they move off to the east towards Chicago and Milwaukee. So I think generally the earlier, the better chance for severe weather, just because that environment will be, kind of less untouched, if you will. There won't be storms going across the same areas. and the environment may still be a little pure for any new storms to develop. I think pretty much 7 o'clock is going to be around that cutoff point. But again, could be earlier, and maybe if a rogue storm can fire up, maybe a little bit later. So kind of a firm start time around noon, and then kind of an initial end time around 7 o'clock at this point for tomorrow. And then heading into Tuesday, again, it's all going to be dependent on when that line of storms develops in Iowa and then starts to move our way. I think pretty much the general timing for Tuesday, about 5 o'clock to midnight. Later on, I think the severe threat will be lower, especially after sunset, but we just can't rule it out just because this whole system is going to be it's a pretty potent kind of low pressure system across the central U.S. So these things can kind of I think we can kind of underestimate sometimes that, sometimes what we call the nocturnal stability, or just the stability after sunset of the atmosphere, sometimes can be overcome by just the strength of this low pressure system. So we just want to be safer than sorry, right? So around midnight, I think, is a good time to say, okay, we're finally in the clear of that line of thunderstorms with any kind of severe weather. So Tuesday, 5 to midnight. And again, the threats that we're looking at for Tuesday, pretty much all modes of severe weather. I think the primary threats would be definitely damaging straight line winds with any kind of line of thunderstorms. Could have some bowing segments with those, with some locally pretty damaging straight line winds over 60 miles per hour. And then also we have that risk for potentially some brief tornadoes. So that's going to be the kind of secondary thing that we look out for, is that potential for some tornado development along that line of storms. So kind of damaging winds and tornadoes on Tuesday, damaging winds and maybe some hail on Monday. So overall, make sure to stay tuned to the forecast and make sure to have multiple ways of getting warnings if you're going to be out and about, especially tomorrow and on Tuesday as well. So Tim asking here, are we dealing with a possible derecho on Monday or Tuesday? That's a little, it's difficult to forecast, specifically a derecho, just because the definitions here are so specific. And actually, I should know this, but I'll just look up the definition of a derecho, because there's specific kind of parameters and they were actually just changed a couple years ago. So let me take a look here at, let me see. Because then I have to figure out, is it the right definition or not? Because it literally just changed. I think it was 2022 is when the definition actually changed here. And I want to make sure I grab the right one. So let's see. It looks like, I think a derecho is damage swath of about 240 miles and wind gusts of over 60 miles per hour. So that's kind of what we're talking about here in terms of, it's pretty much just how long the strength of line of thunderstorms is. If there's, definite significant wind damage over, essentially over 200 miles, that's when we're talking about a potential, derecho. So it's difficult to forecast just because, you have, if it's, 200 miles, then it's not a derecho, but if it's 250, then it is. So it's just kind of, we can forecast the line of thunderstorms with potential damaging straight line winds. Whether it's a derecho or not, it's just simply just how long it lasts, how widespread the damage is and how strong it is. So could it be a derecho? Yes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It's one of those things that's like, it doesn't have to be a derecho for it to be damaging. That's just the characteristic on just how long the damage lasts for. A general line of thunderstorms can do a lot of damage. It doesn't have to be a derecho for it to be truly a damaging kind of concern there. So here, let me kind of take a look here at a few. I know I've been kind of rambling a little bit. Let me take a look here at a few other. So Joe's asking, what are the chances of rain in the morning? So let me kind of speed through. Let me go over to future track here real quick. Okay, so here's 5:30 in the morning tomorrow. Starting to see a line of thunderstorms, maybe just grazing our far northwestern area. So places like Galena may see a thunderstorm pretty early in the morning. However, I think the bulk of this activity is going to be just off to our north into Wisconsin. So places like Monroe and Janesville may be seeing a good thunderstorm, but then heading into northern Illinois, certainly wouldn't be surprised to see some scattered showers and thunderstorms, but we're also looking at pretty much none of this activity is expected to be severe at all. Just kind of looking at maybe a little bit of a noisy start to the morning tomorrow, and then really the severe threat doesn't kick in until about noon. That's going to be about when we're starting to look at that potential for some damaging winds and some hail. So as we see here, closer towards noon, seeing that isolated activity beginning to develop. So we can't, say like, Rockford's going to be hit exactly at noon, or Belvedere is going to see a thunderstorm exactly at 2 o'clock. It's going to be just where do these thunderstorms pop up? We can't, say that it's going to be in this specific spot at this specific time. It's just going to be kind of watching the radar, looking to see where do these thunderstorms pop up, and then also how strong do they get. Some storms will be stronger than others. That's why it's a lower kind of severe threat, just because this activity will likely be just some more isolated to scattered into tomorrow afternoon. Again, so some wind gusts and some hail with the stronger storms. So that's where we're looking at towards 3 o'clock here. Some of these storms, obviously, on this specific model, this storm is stronger than that storm, We just have to see, what storm, really starts to get going, starts to, take in the best of the environment. And that's where we could see those damaging winds up to 60 miles per hour, and then maybe some quarter-size hail with the strongest of these thunderstorms heading into tomorrow. So, we have, some people asking, will Rockford get hit? Will Beloit get hit? It's just going to depend on whether these spotty thunderstorms just cross over your neighborhood. One neighborhood may get some strong wind gusts and some hail, and the neighborhood off, across the street may not get anything. So that's just going to be kind of just this very spotty activity that we see heading into tomorrow. Jennifer asking, derechos can produce tornadoes, correct? Yes, they can. Just like any kind of, the kind of scientific term for it is QLCS, which is an acronym. It's quasi-linear convective system. I went to college and I got a bachelor's in meteorology, and I struggled to understand exactly what that means. It's a line of thunderstorms. It's, we can, and with the derechos themselves, or just with any general lines of thunderstorms, if the wind pattern is just right, you can get little embedded circulations along the leading edge of it. And that's going to be where we see that potential for a tornado threat. That's kind of what we're looking at for Tuesday. And in fact, let me kind of jump forward here to our Tuesday. So this is the morning round. Again, not looking at any kind of severe weather, just again, maybe a noisy start to Tuesday. We get a break in the action heading into late Tuesday morning, early into the afternoon. And then this is that main round of severe weather. Looking at that level 3 out of 5 risk, that enhanced risk for severe weather. That's what we're looking at here on future track, closer towards 7 and 8 o'clock right now. And then it's just going to be like within the leading edge of that line. That's where we just have to watch for those little bits of rotation. That's where we could have that tornado threat. And, these are not, when we talk about that tornado threat, we're not necessarily talking about these long tracked, violent tornadoes, that you see in the plains, like we've unfortunately seen across Oklahoma and Nebraska and Iowa earlier on this season, and really this month actually. It's going to be these very brief, likely rain-wrapped kinds of tornadoes, which is why we say, it's not really worth it to get out there and look, just because you're not going to see anything, and even if you do, it's probably going to be too late anyway, that you're not going to be able to get to your safe shelter in time. So that's why we say, like, if there is a tornado warning for these kinds of systems with, a line of thunderstorms with tornadoes on the leading edge, just get to the basement. You're not going to be able to see anything, and if you do, it's because you're in it, kind of pretty much. So, and even if there's really nothing to look at, it's kind of whoosh, it's in and it's out. It really can move pretty quickly. So that's kind of one of the longest track tornadoes with a line of thunderstorms that I've seen was actually from March 31st of last year, the one that hit Belvedere. Touchdown in Davis Junction and went all the way up into, through Belvedere, obviously, and it went into central Boone County. I believe that was about a 20-mile kind of track there. And that's just because that line of storms was moving so fast. I think it was moving, 50, 60-something miles an hour. With this specific line, though, that we're talking about for Tuesday, doesn't look like it's going to be moving nearly that fast. It's not necessarily going to be moving, at those kind of highway speeds. But still, I mean, this will be moving pretty quickly, and also with some pretty strong wind gusts with it. I mean, sometimes with these, we can get, 60, 70, sometimes even 80 mile per hour wind gusts. I mean, ask Wichita, Kansas today. Looks like in parts of the Wichita area, they saw 90 mile per hour wind gusts potentially. At least that's what the National Weather Service was warning for just about an hour ago. So, and that's the other thing that we kind of thought. Now I'm really going on a spiel here. But some of us, which is valid, that we worry about tornadoes. Tornadoes like the big, red flag word that, oh, it's a tornado. But with damaging straight line winds, it can actually be, more widespread and even more dangerous than a tornado. A tornado is just a very little spot on a map. When you're talking about these, big lines of thunderstorms, you're talking about huge swaths of really strong wind gusts that could be of, a weak tornado strength, but it's over such a wide area. And we see that from time to time. I remember from, I believe it was August 10th of 2020. I'm surprised my memory's really blanking on there. I believe it was August 10th. You saw these huge swaths of damage in these cornfields. And that was with, 100 plus mile per hour wind gusts. So that's when we really talk about really widespread activity. It's like, it doesn't matter if it was a tornado or not, it's still very strong wind gusts and really should be taken seriously. So whether it's a tornado or not, with these very dangerous winds, you really want to make sure that you are keeping an eye on it and make sure you are keeping yourself safe. So that's why we say, even in a severe thunderstorm warning, head inside, head away from the windows, because there could still be, flying tree branches or even trees going down themselves in these very strong wind gusts. So that is a possibility of what we're talking about on Tuesday. Brad's asking about significant severe weather. That hasn't been outlined in the official forecast from the Storm Prediction Center. And that's actually a definition in terms of significant severe weather. That's about 75 mile per hour wind gusts or higher. That hasn't been in the official forecast yet. And it's going to be difficult to tell as to whether we can exceed that threshold, just because we have to see how the I got to think about what I'm going to say here. How the morning round of storms kind of pans out, because if the bulk of the severe weather stays north of us, then we're not necessarily getting into that significant severe territory, or if we get that thunderstorm to move right on top of us, then maybe we are. So still looking at that potential for potentially some significant severe weather, but still, it's just still even too early to get into that kind of specifics here. We just have to see how the Monday storms pan out, and then also how that morning round on Tuesday pans out. So Brad also noting July 5th, 2000. Yeah, I believe it was 2003, I think so. Yeah, it was the night after the 4th of July, and that was actually a microburst, and that could be something a little bit of what we see heading into Monday with these very spotty thunderstorms. They can, if they shoot up really high, and then they can bring a pretty powerful downburst and to these very localized spots. So that could be a little bit of what we see there in terms of these really damaging wind events. That's a little bit of what we're looking at for tomorrow. I'm not saying that it's going to be like July 5th, 2003. I remember I think my parents were saying that our neighborhood was without power for about a day, and there were trees down all over neighborhoods. That's not in the forecast. I mean, we can't say that that's specifically going to happen, but that's a possibility. That we could see, these really strong downbursts with these very isolated thunderstorms, especially when they really start to shoot up really high. You can also get some hail with those thunderstorms, and you can get some pretty powerful wind gusts with those. So that's why we really want to watch out to see where these thunderstorms are starting to bubble up, and then also where they're really starting to, gain that kind of severe strength in terms of the winds and also the hail. So that'll be kind of something that we watch for. Let me speed through those two graphics one more time. So Monday, looking at a level 2 out of 5, that slight risk for severe weather. That is going to be noon until 7 o'clock in the evening. And it may end a little bit earlier than that. I'm just kind of going a safer rather than sorry kind of timing in terms of the end time of the severe threat. I think noon is a pretty good start time with that we're looking at those storms starting to bubble up right at about noon. That's when we really start to see those temperatures really starting to rise into the upper 70s, if not low 80s across the area. Then heading into Tuesday, I think our main threat here is around 5 p.m. to midnight. Is it going to be across that entire time? No, it's just going to be a very general timing here, just because we have to see where how the Monday storms pan out, how the Tuesday morning storms pan out, just to see how the evening round will pan out. So we just have a very general timing here of about 5 p.m. to midnight. That's really when you want to be weather aware. This is that level 3 out of 5. Again, all hazards possible. I think the main threats are damaging straight line winds and that potential for some spin up tornadoes along the leading edge of that potential line of storms. So really want to make sure that you're staying weather aware. Have multiple ways of receiving those warnings, especially in the time frame here, Monday and Tuesday. Of course, we will have continuing coverage throughout the next couple of days. Meteorologist Claudia Olek in the mornings and Chief Meteorologist Alex Kirchner in the evenings. And I'm sure I'll be around here sometime over the next couple of days if we're looking at some of the severe weather that is in the forecast heading over the next couple of days. So again, make sure to stay weather aware. Stay tuned for further updates. I mean, even right now, we have continued new model runs coming in. So of course, I'll have the full details on those coming up here in about an hour on 13 News at 10. And of course, continuing coverage, as I mentioned, over the next couple of days. So make sure to stay tuned and stay safe, everyone. Have a good night.